ADDIE and the Instructional Design Model by Matthew Wilcox, EDT 610, Instructional Design, Theories and Models, St. Thomas University. ADDIE is an acronym standing for Analyze, Design, Develop, Implement, and Evaluate. Although in some cases it has been prescribed as a model, ADDIE represents the instructional design process. To understand ADDIE, it's best to understand what an instructional design model does. By definition, a model may describe commonalities, illustrate a process, or even represent something. In professional settings, models are quite often used to bring uniformity, offer guidelines, and offer a high level of quality. Models assist and guide instructional designers and tend to follow the formative process of ADDIE. So let's take a closer look at each of these phases. Analyze. To analyze, one must learn about their audience, the issues that are being faced, and discover a solution. To discover a problem, it is best to give the learners a needs assessment. This assessment will narrow the focus on what the true issues are and help the instructor to identify the areas that are troubling the learner. Following an assessment, you should conduct a learner's analysis so to understand and know more about your audience. After conducting a learner's analysis, you can start to design instruction around the learner's needs. This is one of the most important phases of ADDIE, as it is more of an education for the instructor than it is for the learner. The Analyze phase is meant to educate the instructor on the experiences and knowledge that the learners already have, so to solve the troubling areas of new knowledge the learner is trying to gain. Some helpful questions in this phase of ADDIE are: who are the learners? What goals are needed to be met? What skills, knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors are needed? What levels of content is needed? What resources are required for the learners? Design. The design phase incorporates the learner's needs assessment and analysis to create learning objectives, assessment instruments, content, exercises, lesson plans, and the selecting of media. Essentially, you create a storyboard that acts as your guide for instruction. The design needs to be orderly and specific so it is logical, based on strategies that target specific goals, and pays close attention to detail. Questions to ask in the design phase of ADDIE could be: how will content be presented? What are the objectives of the lesson? What are the outcomes? What sources will be used during instruction? Is there student assessment and understanding? Develop. In the develop phase, you would take your storyboard from the design phase and implement it. This is where content assets from the design phase are gathered and created and technologies are integrated. Feedback is critical in this stage as it provides essential revisions wherever needed. Questions to ask in the develop phase are: what lesson plans will be created? What organization should be used for the content? What skills, knowledge, attitudes, and behaviors are needed? What activities will be included? What media will be used? In the implement phase of ADDIE, you will implement or deliver the instructional design that you have created. This is where the learners will have hands-on practice with the instruction plan. Also, any technology, hardware, or software will be presented to the learners and they will need to become familiar with the materials. To implement means that instructional material must connect with the learner, and the instructor must be aware of how to relate to the individual learner. In this phase, some questions you may ask: how does one introduce the lesson? How does one motivate the learner? What types of questions should be used? What media will be used to present to the learners? How does the instructor make great use of time? Evaluate. Evaluating your instructional design is critical for future implementations. It is most important to know if the learners enjoyed the instruction, almost more important than knowing if they learned something. The entire reason for ADDIE to educate and train the learners, however, if the learners find the instructional design boring or dull, retaining the material will be affected by the negative relation to boredom. Critical questions to ask in the evaluate phase are: did the learner enjoy learning and retain the material? Who will review the materials to ensure that the lesson was successful? What adjustments are needed? What went well? ADDIE has an abundance of strengths. It is a simple 5-step process. It's widely used for instructional design due to its popularity. ADDIE is dynamic and flexible. This process attempts to save money and time. Open to instructional theories such as behaviorism, constructivism, cognitivism, and others. ADDIE is a progressive one-step process. Like most things, there are some inherent weaknesses with ADDIE. Requires unrealistic upfront analysis. Does not also understand political realities. This process is sometimes ineffective for creating, communicating, or evaluating design alternatives. Details of the process can undermine creativity. Meeting measurable criteria in the ADDIE process can fail to identify behavior changes. If the post-test evaluation is not effective, the information does little to assist in instructional improvement. Thank you for watching and listening, and hopefully ADDIE will be useful for your instructional design model.